When Archaeology was announced for Minecraft, I thought just one thing. This has got to be one of the weirdest, most unexpected mechanics we've had for quite some time. It seems like a really unusual direction to go in, and it definitely sticks out because we've never had something quite like this before. In some ways, it makes you feel a little uncomfortable because the whole idea is very alien and unfamiliar to what we've grown to expect from Minecraft. This feature is all about lore, history, storytelling, and the player's journey. That's kind of uncharted territory. Sure, we've got things like structures that kind of infer some sort of history, but this is the first time the game has actually directly acknowledged that there is a story with a baked-in game mechanic. This isn't just some Easter egg, it's part of the game, and you're expected to experience it. Some people aren't going to like this feature. It falls into an iffy zone where there's just something a bit off about it. But whether you like it or not, it's definitely an interesting statement. We're willing to do something you didn't think we would do. That said, I also think this feature needs, from what we know about it at least, a lot of work. So subscribe if you like what you see. I will be your host, Simply Sark, and can we improve Minecraft Archaeology? Let's start with why I think this whole thing needs improving. When you first look at this, I think your immediate reaction is pretty much, this sounds really gimmicky. My fear with this feature is that I'm not sure people are actually going to find this that valuable to their overall gameplay experience. The idea, of course, is that with these dig sites, fragments, and pots, you can tell your own personal story with the little decals you find. While I think that's quite a cute idea, in practice, I have a suspicion people are going to find this all highly situational. For a feature to be successful, I think it needs to offer a compelling reason to actually use. And with this, I reckon it's one of those things you'll maybe do just once for the novelty, then never touch it again. And that's a really bad way to design things. At the end of the day, Minecraft is a game about building, and realistically, would this pot add much to your building experience? No, not really. You'd make one and that'd be the end of it. Even with the customization, I think the pot pretty much forces this one very narrow style, and outside of this is my storytelling pot, it would just look a bit ugly in most other settings. I'm not talking about the work-in-progress developer art here, but rather this whole storytelling theme. I think it needs toning down just a little bit. Remember the builder, they're the ones who are going to be using this, don't make the feature too niche. I think what would be a better approach is if these pots used something more reminiscent of the banner system, because people love banners. The whole layering mechanic is simple enough, but it means you can create highly customized designs with a fairly modest number of banner elements and patterns. Pots should prioritize an attractive aesthetic first, and the storytelling element should be delivered later and a bit more subtly. For example, you could start with a raw pot, then add a base color, then some texture, maybe some trimming, some detailing, and then it's time for the ceramic decals. From what we've seen, I think the decals need to be bigger and more stylized. I don't think you should be able to cram a dozen shards onto the same pot. It's overcrowded and doesn't give enough resolution to do anything interesting with the design. Less is more. With something like this, builders are given a beautiful customizable pot mechanic to populate their interiors with, and they can spread this storytelling across an entire space rather than just cramming it into a tiny little block. Next up, let's talk about how this whole thing actually works to begin with, because this isn't a pot making system, it's an archaeology system. Throughout the world, these excavation sites will generate, and it's here where you'll actually uncover these ceramic shards by brushing away dirt and gravel. This is definitely an interesting way to add to these artifacts, but I do have a few questions on how this is all going to work. The first is that, is this going to be limited to the archaeological dig sites? If I take one of these brushes and use it on dirt or gravel somewhere else in the world, what happens? Do you get something out of it? Because these can apparently uncover full diamond blocks, which if you put two and two together would mean a diamond farm. Personally, I think that's a bit of a bad idea. I definitely do hope there's some kind of bounding box with these dig sites, and the brushing mechanic only works properly within them. But then I have another question in that, if they only work within the boundaries, is this a finite resource? If I consume all the dirt and gravel blocks that spawned here, can I add new ones and continue to use it forever? Or do only naturally generated blocks actually count? Here's how I think it should work. The brushing mechanic should only function when you're actually at the dig site. You should be able to place new dirt and gravel blocks within the site, and these should be able to generate the same loot you'd get as if they'd always been there. I know that doesn't make entire sense, but hear me out. I reckon it'd be cool if each individual dig site had its very own loot pool. So one might have a very low chance of spawning diamonds, whereas another one could have much higher odds. Additionally, I think there should be a rarity index for the ceramic shards. I don't think all shards should spawn in all locations. There should be some common shards, but then there should also be rare and ultra rare decals as well. This would create an interesting situation where geographical locations would gain value once it was discovered they hold a highly desirable loot pool. People would flock to and develop the area because there's a strong incentive to be there all of a sudden. I also think it'd be fun if there was a layer of risk to it as well. Maybe if you overexploit the dig site, it could become permanently depleted and useless. The game could warn you if you'd been using the site too much and that it's time to back off for a while. Will your greed get the better of you? Will you keep chancing it for more loot? Will you get impatient and return to the site before it's ready? You could get more stuff, or you could lose this gold mine forever. The ceramic shards could also act like trading cards. Maybe someone else has a decal you really want for a pot, but being rare, it commandeers a higher price than the more common ones. The thing is though, even with all that, I still think this feature is missing something to really cement it as a worthwhile mechanic to the overall player experience. A beautiful pot is nice, a new source of diamonds is nice, but either way, you're probably going to end up with loads of shards and pots that eventually just become unwanted junk. It's kind of a funny image that you're going to find these priceless artifacts and pretty much just toss them in the bin. So how do you take this feature and give long-term value to the player? The tricky thing is, you're already getting stuff like diamonds from excavating, so it's a bit redundant to just give the player even more. That's when I noticed, you're kind of creating art here. If you dug up some T-Rex skull or something, that really is a priceless artifact. It doesn't have a true monetary value. The only thing that is comparable to a genuine artifact is another artifact. So I have an idea here that I think would make this whole thing really fun and worthwhile to pursue. Auctions. Let me explain how this would work. Once you've completed a pot, you'd be able to take your finished work of art and auction it off for something else. Like I said, I don't think it should be something like diamonds or emeralds, but another type of artifact altogether. All you'd need to do is head to a village and place down a new type of workstation called an auction table. This table is basically a block that lets you host auctions in villages. You place a valid block like the clay pot onto the table and an auction is scheduled for later that evening. This is sort of similar to how villagers gather at meeting points around the day. It's like this big community event. Instead of getting emeralds in auctions, the villagers will assess how rare your particular pot is and trade it for what they deem to be a comparable artifact. If you just used common ceramic shards, they're not going to be that impressed. But if your pot has lots of rare detailing they've never seen before, you're going to get a really nice prize. Also, it'd be kind of funny if you could auction off something like the Dragon Egg too, because that's got to be worth something. So what would these artifacts actually be? Well, I think they should be rare trophy items that give you ultimate bragging rights. For example, we have paintings, but maybe they could add a couple masterpieces that don't appear in the regular pool. You could put these stunning works of art up for display and be the envy of town. As a throwback to Alpha, maybe you could also win an Alpha grass block, which would be like a regular grass block, except it's neon green, like it was all those years ago. If you were really lucky, you could win a mint condition undamaged version of Disc 11. I wonder what it'd sound like. There could be all kinds of artifacts, rare, unique blocks and items that, along with your pots, you can collect and put on display to basically show off. If you took a look at all these features and ideas I've talked about, you can really see all the new gameplay loops that would be created off the back of the Archaeology system. Builders would get a brand new, highly customizable decoration block. General players would have a new source of resources like diamonds and an incentive to explore and develop new areas, and completionists and hoarders have new blocks and items to collect and goals to work towards. I think the Archaeology system has an interesting premise that we've not seen before, but from what's been presented to us thus far, I definitely think it needs some fleshing out to make it more than just a novelty feature. These are just some ideas I thought about, but as always, there are many unknowns at the moment, and some of these concerns I brought up might already have been answered in some completely different way. We just don't know about them yet. Either way, I think these are some pretty fun ideas to think about. If you have any thoughts about this whole archaeology business yourself, feel free to let me know in the comments. But guys, that is all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed. I have been your one and only, your priceless artifact, Simply Sark, and I'll catch you in the next one.